about using the microbit with the Raspberry Pi.
Hi everybody, so I'm Carlos, and as I said, I'll be talking about getting the microbit and the Raspberry Pi together. So we can start with a short summary of what the PVC microbit is and how it relates to the Raspberry Pi, and then we can jump in right straight through to the programming environments. So this could be the programming environments that are provided by default by the microbit.org website, but then we can cover also some less known programming languages. So this could be platforms that you may be using for other projects and that they may be already compatible with the microbit. And after that, we'll just go through how to get the microbit working with the Raspberry Pi. Could I get a quick show of hands of how many of you know what the microbit is? Okay, so pretty much everybody. And how many of you have actually used the microbit so far? All right. So what it is, it's basically an Mbed compatible board. So Mbed is a platform for embedded systems. It's released by ARM, and you can think of it as an operating system with a bunch of hardware libraries, so that you can quickly prototype and develop your products. The heart of the microbit board is the NRF51, which is a Nordic chip that contains a Cortex M0 and a Bluetooth with Bluetooth functionality. The Cortex M is basically a microcontroller, so this is much closer to what an Arduino is than what an embedded Linux board like the Raspberry Pi or the BeagleBoard are. And as you can probably see from the rest of the specs, it's not as powerful either. So we run it at 16 megahertz, and it has 16 kilobytes of RAM and 256 kilobytes of flash. Now this may not seem like a lot, but a lot of the embedded platforms that you use these days may contain even less RAM and all that. We have GPIO access through the edge connector at the bottom, and you can clearly see that some of the GPIOs are much bigger, so it makes it really easy to connect crocodile clips and banana plugs, things like that. It really makes it quite simple to play with electronics. It also has an accelerometer and a compass connected through I2C. On the other side, we have a 5x5 LED matrix, and because of the physical properties of electric LEDs, we can also use this as a light sensor type of module. It's a couple of buttons, and the processor itself has a temperature sensor, so you have access to that from the software as well. The board comes with its own onboard programmer, which you can see it's the one closer to the USB port. This presents itself on a computer as a USB drive, so it makes programming it really easy. You basically just get a hex file and then just copy it to the USB drive with any of your operating system tools. And it does have a battery connector as well, so you can take it out and run it anymore. The main thing is that it is a microcontroller. It's a microcontroller board with a lot of capabilities. You can pretty much use it for anything that you use microcontrollers for. And a lot of people get fooled by the idea of well, you first open it up, you go into the website, and it's got a lot of visual programming tools, so it must be just for education, or maybe just for playing around. But the reality is, you can do pretty much anything with it. And I think the other cool thing about it is that compared with other boards, there is quite a lot of sensors and things that you can interact with. So it is true that it really lowers that barrier of entry to actually just get up and running with writing some code and getting something interactive in your hands really quickly. So if you think about that, what other type of a small computer board, it's really good for education, also really good for makers, and that's of course the Raspberry Pi. And as you all know, the Raspberry Pi is pretty much a Linux computer, and as such, you can use it with a microbit the same way that you would use pretty much your desktop or your laptop. You use all the same tools. Some of them may be a little bit more fiddly to get working, but the community is quite active, and they're usually trying to make this whole transition much easier. One of the important things to emphasize is that when the microbit first came out, you would find a bunch of articles that were just talking about, should I get the microbit or the Raspberry Pi, or which one is better? And we're not really talking about the same category here. The microbit is a microcontroller, the Raspberry Pi is a small computer, and they're really meant for each other. They complement each other really well, and And that's the way that you should really say it. So, what are the main programming environments? If you go into the microbit.org website, it has a fairly simple big button interface right at the top. You can get started, read some documentation, find out a little bit more about it, or you can click on Let's Code, which offers you a variety of environments and languages that you can use right away. A lot of these, well, all of these links will actually work on the browser directly. So once again, it makes it really easy to just go to the website and be able to write some code right away. I'm going to start talking about the Microsoft Touch Develop for reasons that will be a little bit more apparent as I go through. So Touch Develop. If you haven't used the microbit, it's likely that you haven't seen Touch Develop before, but it's been developed by Microsoft for quite a while. You can think of it as a hybrid between almost like a visual language and a written language. It is basically, its main purpose is to be easy to use on touch devices. And this becomes really apparent when you use a mobile phone or a tablet. I don't know if you ever tried to write some code on your phone, maybe like a chat program or anything like that, but it is a nightmare. You make mistakes all the time, the autocorrect just necessary. And Touch Develop addresses a lot of those issues. Basically, when you want to type some code, and you can click on any of the bits over there, and its own keyword will pop up and it will offer you a very simple interface to add and modify the code. Let's have a quick look. So you can see we have the microbit on the left. It's basically a similar to running on the browser. So as I mentioned before, even though the resolution is a little bit messed up, you have, when you click on a bit to add code, you can actually use their own keyboard. I'm sorry, but it's hidden below, and it helps you get all that code written without actually having to type each word letter by letter. The simulation is quite cool as well, because you can basically write your code and then simulate it on the browser. It really reduces that time to test stuff. And one of the things that will be quite common between the other languages is that this will compile into bytecode, and that bytecode gets compiled on the browser. So this is one of the cool advantages of using the microbit.org website, is that you get your programs compiled on the website and everything is ready to use. You can click on the download hex file, and it basically presents you with a file. You copy it into your microbit using the USB drive, and you're set to go. The next one is the Microsoft blogs, and this was the first blog interface that the microbit website released. So it's based on Google Blockly. I don't know if anybody has seen Blockly before, but it's fairly similar to Scratch. You have some blogs that you can drag from your main toolbar into the workspace, and they represent code. Blockly, in this case, generates touch develop code. And because it generates this touch develop code, it's able to reuse a lot of the things that touch develop has developed. So it has the emulator, it generates the compiled file on the browser and all that stuff. Now we also have PXD, and it looks very similar because it's also made by Microsoft, but it has changed things a little bit. Instead of generating touch developed code, PXD is based on TouchScript. Now if you don't know what TouchScript is, it's basically a subset of JavaScript. Because we're using it's a superset of JavaScript, and we're using a subset of TouchScript. It really means it's JavaScript. You can pretty much ignore all of that. It looks like JavaScript. If you've used JavaScript, you can pretty much just get familiar with it really quickly. You can move between the blog interface and the JavaScript code quite simply as well. And it has been developed quite actively in the past few months. So, well, in the past year maybe. So one of the things that I quite like about PXD as well is that it offers you a lot more tools. So in this instance, I installed it on my Raspberry Pi as well. So if you want to have it locally, you can have access to the internet, or you just want to play with it this way. You install it as an npm module. Basically, if you just install Node.js, it comes with all these tools to get it up and running. And it just creates a server on the Raspberry Pi. It serves the page, and you have pretty much the same interface that you do on the website. with the difference that this is actually coming directly from the Microsoft repositories, so you can actually play with the latest features earlier than they actually put on the website. It's taking a little bit to load, but well, once it loads, you'll see it's pretty much the same. Another advantage is that because it is actually running on the Raspberry Pi, it's able to detect the microbit, so when you click download, whatever program you've created will automatically get downloaded into your microbit, so you don't even have to worry about messing with these hex files and all that stuff. So, as you can see, that's the log interface, and if we click on JavaScript, it should show you the JavaScript code. I think I have quite a few things running at the same time. So, anyway. As a last note, it also has an emulator, but one of the cool things about this emulator is that when you use any of the blocks that might require additional hardware, in this case, we added this Tom block, it actually tells you how to connect it. So the diagram can be actually quite harmful to be able to connect to whatever block you've been using. Another alternative is CodeKingdoms. So CodeKingdoms is also JavaScript based. This is coming from a startup in London, which I believe first generated this for Minecraft. And one of the advantages of CodeKingdoms is that it offers you a granular transition between blocks and written code. So because the resolution on my Raspberry Pi is not ideal, I probably won't be able to show you. But as you can see on the screenshot, we have the blocks on the left, and just like any other virtual programming language, you just move them to the right. But at the bottom, you would see there's basically a slider you can move. So it has 4 steps. You can go from very visual blocks with icons and nice colors. You move it 1 step forward, and it loops the icons, but you still have blocks that you can drag and drop around. You move it 1 step forward, and then it pretty much looks like code, but they become code snippets that you can still drag around and modify in a similar kind of way. And then you move it all the way to the right, and it's just written code. That could be quite useful if you're trying to transition between one and the other, because it does offer you that granularity, and you can really see how one relates to the other. Just like the others, it compiles to the same type of bytecode that Touch developed does, so it has the same advantages, where it has an emulator, it compiles on the browser, and it's compatible with all the libraries that they release on the main runtime. And MicroPython, so this is my personal favorite. I'm partially biased, but you know, it's Python, it's awesome. So if you've not played with the MicroPython yet, it's basically a port of Python for microcontrollers. The main difference between MicroPython and the way that the other programming languages work is that this one doesn't compile to the bytecode developed by Touch developed. It actually interfaces with some of the same libraries, but it compiles into basically an interpreter that you don't know into the microbit. One of the advantages of this is that you actually have the full Python interpreter in your microbit, and you can easily just get a REPL up and running. If you haven't seen a REPL before, it stands for Read, Evaluate, Print, and Load. It means that you can interact with it really, really quickly. You open a terminal, you type some code, and it gets executed instantly. This gives you really quick feedback, and it also offers you opportunities to explore a little bit. I personally always forget all the APIs and function calls and stuff like that. So I can go into a REPL, test it. If it doesn't work, maybe just miscalculate something different. You can also, you have some help functions that it actually tells you what you can do and what you cannot do. So it really gives you that quick look to be able to check whatever you want to do really quickly. You have an online browser, and there's also a desktop editor that you can use. They all work in all operating systems. They all work perfectly fine on the Raspberry Pi as well. Now, one of the things that it doesn't currently have is block editor, just like Touch developed and XD have. At the moment, there's third-party blockly interfaces for MicroPython that work with the microbit. There's also third-party emulators. There's some links at the end of the slide if you want to check those out. But there's also a blockly interface coming to MicroPython very soon. So that's pretty much our point is pretty much ready to be released. So check the website and check Twitter as well. We'll probably talk about it as soon as it's out. But like any any embedded development work really. You end up using C and C++ as well quite a lot. Now all the other languages, they depend on the runtime that's being created with this language. If you use C and C++, you may be more familiar with it, maybe less familiar with it. But one of the nice advantages of the microbit is that it uses the microbit runtime. And the guys from Lancaster, they've created this really nice abstraction layer interface for the microbit, where it's really easy to interact with the hardware. If you can see on the example code on the right, at the top you basically just have this declaration, which is microbit ubit. And this is really a class that contains all the required interfaces for your hardware. So if you want to do something with the accelerometer, you type ubit.accelerometer.getx, get y, bunch of functions, and you get the data right away. In this example, it basically talks with the microbit radio. So a quick note on the radio. I might be talking about the microbit radio and Bluetooth. The Nordic chip contains lots of functionality, but it also contains its own proprietary stack of a wireless protocol. It's not quite Bluetooth, it uses the same hardware, but it makes it really easy to actually get microbits talking to each other. You have mesh connection, mesh networks and things like that. And it's actually a really nice, easy to use one. For C++, you basically use the embedded toolchain, so you can go into the embedded website and use the code editors there. But you can download all the tools on your computer and then just use whatever editor you're comfortable with. And I've mentioned the runtime a couple of times. This is basically the lower layer of where everything is built on top of. You can see at the very bottom, you see that it has the Nordic SDK. It's just basically a Nordic libraries to do all the hardware interfaces. On top of that, we have embed, which is what I mentioned before about being an embed compatible board, so you can use the embed tools, the toolchain, and all that stuff. And then Lancaster created the runtime. The runtime is that hardware model, that additional abstraction layer to make it simple to use. And then all the other languages that I used before, they pretty much end up compiling down and link to that stack. Also, Python, as you can see, is kind of like in between things because they used a different interpreter. It has very limited resources, so they had to manually re-implement some of this functionality. So a quick note, just in case you're interested. You can see there is the flash and the RAM, the memory usage really. So except for Python, which doesn't really use this self-device stuff, your programs end up having around 72 kilobytes of user data, so that's the code that you write, and you end up having 2.5 kilobytes of available RAM. That might not seem like a lot, but if you look into an Arduino, it's usually 2 kilobytes of RAM and 32 kilobytes of flash, so it's still a little bit ahead. Plus it's a Cortex-M, which is a bit more powerful. And this is great. This is all supported languages that you can just go to the website. There's a lot of documentation. There's a lot of links. The online editors, the offline editors, all really well supported. But just like many other embedded boards, you can use other platforms. You can use other languages, and people have been porting their own things into a microbit for quite a while. This one is actually quite nice. It's also JavaScript, so if you're familiar with that language, this is quite good too. The main difference is that it's plain JavaScript, but it offers an internal interpreter similar to what MicroPython does. So you flash it in, and then you can actually access it through the command line. You can type code right away. You get feedback instantly, and it also has Bluetooth. So it offers you the ability to connect to it through the web IDE. You can connect through this interpreter without any cables. It also has a block interface. So if you go into the Espruino website, you have a link to the web IDE, and it very much, as long as you flash a predefined hex file into your microbit, it connects to it fairly simply, and you can just start developing right away. Rust, it's this was quite funny the first time I saw it. I never really thought this would be ported or used with a microbit. If you have never seen Rust before, it's a fairly new programming language from Mozilla. It's called a system programming language. It's fairly low level, but the thing is you compile it, and it can compile to the ARM processor as well. One of the things about Rust is that it can call C functions, so they pack it together with the runtime, and then you can write your Rust little program that actually calls that ubit class that I was mentioning before, and get it all together and run it for the microbit. So as far as I understand, he's just got basic functionality running. On his article, mentions that he wishes he could actually get the entire thing done in Rust. I don't know if it's going to happen, but it's a really cool experiment if you actually like the language. And this is a fairly new implementation for the microbit itself. I personally haven't seen it before for the microbit. I was playing with this last week. I managed to get it working just in time for this talk. So let's have a quick look. The thing about Arduino is that it has a massive ecosystem. So if you've never seen Arduino before, it's an open source software and hardware platform for electronics and embedded systems. So it uses C and C++, but it also abstracts a lot of this hardware's complexity using their own Arduino libraries. Because it's so popular, a lot of companies, a lot of people have been creating shields and electronic kits, tutorials, libraries. And one of the advantages of being able to use this on the microbit is that you can reutilize a lot of that. Of course, the pins are slightly different, and hardware inside the board is slightly different, configured in its own way. But as long as somebody creates a library to talk to them again, then it should all work. At this point, I was just preparing a simple example. I didn't have enough time to actually figure out how the LEDs are connected and what pins I should be toggling or not. So I decided to just use the UART communication. So the way to install it is basically you go into the port manager. There's a link at the bottom where you can find more information. It gives you some steps for additional links to include inside the IDE, and it just updates itself. You can select the microbit from the tools menu. So it's a little bit busy compiling, but if the tools menu were open, you can see that it selects the microbit. There we go. So it's compiled, and if it's worked, we should see a message on the serial monitor. That's just the permissions I have on my Raspberry Pi, it's not on microbit. So there we go, hello from microbit. And if I reset the microbit, just so that I'm not cheating, let's see. Okay. So I think this is really cool just because it opens quite a lot of possibilities to actually reuse a lot of the content that's already available, a lot of the hardware, a lot of the libraries, so it should be quite interesting. Now the interesting part is how do you get this microbit talking with our Raspberry Pi? And if you use other microcontrollers, then perhaps you know some of these answers. In this case, the programmer chip that I was mentioning about before, apart from giving you this USB drive, it also gives you this USB serial. So as far as the Raspberry Pi or any other computer is concerned, there's another serial connection available on your computer. And this makes it really easy to actually send data back and forth through the USB cable. If you like Python, for instance, just importing the serial module and configuring fairly few settings. A lot of these are defaults anyway, so you can get away with just those 3 lines of code. You can send data to the microbit right away. Another fairly simple way to communicate is using the GPIO. So if you've noticed, the drawings that I've got on the left, your right, they actually come from the Raspberry Pi Foundation. So they do have some resources about getting the microbit talking with the Raspberry Pi. And the GPIO access is fairly simple. With Python address in the Raspberry Pi, like GPIO 0, you can basically read the state of the pins the microbit can set. You can create your own protocols. You can use things like I2C and SPI and all that stuff. And that should get you going quite quickly as well. But all the cool kids are using Bluetooth these days. And we have the microbit with Bluetooth, we have the Raspberry Pi with Bluetooth. We should be able to get these two talking to each other, sure. At the moment, there is two talks. There is two main ways of doing it. One is using Node.js, If you like JavaScript, once again, this will be the best way to do it. And the other one is using Python. Now, we do have some talk later today, I believe about 20 past 2, talking about Python on the Raspberry Pi. So if you're interested about this, then I highly recommend going to that one. For the Node.js, you can see that the code is fairly similar. It looks like JavaScript. It's very JavaScript-like. It has all these nested functions because that's the way they do things. But everything is kind of already done by this library. You just kind of connect to it. You subscribe to specific services that the microbit broadcasts, and you can get the data from the microbit, or you can push the data to the microbit. Quite simple. So have a look. A quick demo, but this may fail miserably because earlier today it worked and then it didn't and it worked again. So I basically just created this node project, and all I'm doing here is just executing one of the examples that looks very much just like that. Let's try compass. So it's scanning from microbits. I already flashed a version of the software for the microbit that contains all the Bluetooth services in this one. I'm connected through the USB just for power, really. And you can see right away that it's connected. That's just the USB drive complaining about provisions. And it's subscribed. So it seems to be working. So I'm getting much data out. Okay, you're gonna have to trust me, this works most of the time. It's gone all the way through to actually scan for it, connect, set it up, and subscribe to what the microbit is trying to broadcast. So if you get it working, it's fairly simple to just get data in and out. You don't have to write code for the microbit, but if you want to expand that whole your application, then you can do that as well. Make it do things based on messages that you send, things like that. And I think that's all. Thank you.
Any questions?
Obviously, with the microbit and with CodeBug and other things like that with Scratch, you have the option of blocking the user interface for coding. Do you see that advancing on to have block the interfaces which work with some of these other languages you're talking about? Because that really help introduce it to children.
Yes, definitely. So if I mentioned before, the first block interface that was created was basically these Microsoft blocks. This basically generates code. These blocks will generate any code that you design it to generate. For the microbit, it originally was this touch develop implementation. Then when they created PXD, which was basically JavaScript, they reused, well, they remade them really, but they used a fairly similar way of creating the blocks. In this case, it generates JavaScript. MicroPython, it's coming with a block interface as well. So this is imminent. It will be available on the website. Same blocks. Slightly different because they're targeting the Python interfaces, but they will generate Python code side by side in real time as well. So you can clearly see changes that you make on the blocks actually result in changes in the code, and they start one-to-one correlation that hopefully should help.
So will you be able to code in Python and see the blocks?
At the moment, that's not really a possibility. It's something that definitely should be looked into, but there's some complications as far as parsing the Python back into blocks. If you go in one of these other alternative languages was Espruino. The web IDE, I'm not quite sure if you can see it here, but there's a block icon as well, so you can use that block to create JavaScript too, and then that gets sent to the microbit as well.
Thank
Anyone else? Thank you very much.